Ja, schade wat er zit. Ja, maar hij moet wel af zitten. You still need a beer before you sit down. So our second and last speaker for tonight is Jurgen. Jurgen is one of the front-end developers at the Voorhoede. He's also one of our tech leads. And I think that me and all of Jurgen's other colleagues here kind of know about Jurgen that, well, whenever he's never really satisfied with the answer, it sort of works like this. He always needs to get to the bottom of everything once he sets his mind to something. And I think one of the more recent things that got into Jurgen's head are SVGs. And well, that was the moment that he made sure that he knew all the ins and outs about SVGs. Personally, I think that Jurgen writes all his SVG code by hand in his IDE. But tonight he's also going to tell more about how you offer and maintain SVGs in different ways. So give it up for Jurgen.
Well, I don't really offer it by hand, but I always open them with my IDE when I get them. And yeah, when I see something that doesn't really feel right, I dive into it. And what didn't really feel right was this image, for instance. Yeah, we work a lot with visual designers, and I once got this asset, and it looked very simple, but it was still 2 KB. I thought, well, that's not right. It should be like 100 bytes or something. Why is this so big? And other times you get a drawing like this, and you open it in Illustrator, and all of a sudden everything is gone, and it looks horrible. And then when you put it on a website and it looks like this, then you're the one to blame. So I want to preemptively figure this out and dove into it. So yeah, where do SVGs come from? Often you get a file, vd.icon.svg from a visual designer, and I started asking them, well, what application do you use to draw your SVGs? I sent this out as a Google form to a lot of visual designers we work with at United. Most of them said Illustrator. One person said Sketch. And what do you use to export your SVG assets? One person also said Sketch, and the rest of them said Illustrator. And then what do you get? Well, obviously I opened the Sketch one because that's the worst offender. Yeah, you see a lot of stuff, and to be honest, I don't know what a lot of stuff actually does in there. I know that it doesn't do anything per se, but it's still there. So why is there an XML version on there which is not needed? Why is there a generated sketch 42? Why is there a description created with Sketch? No one really wants to know what you use to alter your assets, I think. And then all of a sudden, with a mask in it for something else, no one knows why. I asked, yeah, what do you use to actually test your SVG assets in? And most of them said, well, I use the Finder. Just do a quick look, and if it looks fine there, it's fine by me. Or yeah, maybe I open it in Safari. Okay, another question. What application do you use to optimize your SVGs then? Well, most of them optimize. Why should they optimize? It's an image. I don't know. And for some reason, some of them also knew SVG OMG, which I think is quite a cool thing that they know about SVG OMG. Although a lot of things that you can do with your SVGs to make sure that they're not that big or are maybe more flexible to use are not things that you can figure out with SVG or make sure that are maintained with SVG. So where do these SVG go? When we use SVG, we might use it as an image or as an object, or also quite often directly in the HTML or inside an SVG with a background image with the data URI. Some people will say, well, why have these different strategies? Well, different strategies for different things. Especially directly in HTML, you can have a lot of things you can do with it because it's in the same scope as the CSS derived for your HTML. So how did I get there? And then we get into the fun part. Illustrator has a lot of these SVG options, but these are the things we cannot control. These are the things that a visual designer has to choose. And for instance, for styling, there are 4 options. For fonts, there are multiple options. Decimal places are something that maybe now makes sense after Wolf's talk regarding the points within an EM, because it's about the precision of your artwork. But these things are not things that you can really give to a designer to make a good choice about. I found out there's another option in Illustrator. I did not even know this. There's an asset export, and it has less options, unless you know where to look for. And I believe this button, there are other options that kind of mimic the options of this one, but with slightly different wording of the options. And we have Sketch, and they have this beautiful export panel, and say, well, I want a SVG or a PNG, and then it will just create the artwork for you in a folder and you can send over to me. So why did break or bloat? I wanted to find out. So I dove into a lot of these SVGs I got, saw big files, a lot of points, a lot of the mask I talked about, or some artwork that looked like something that would be a stroke actually became a fill. So I wanted to find out why. So what I did was just draw a lot of squares. You can probably see that it's not that hard to do. You would imagine that these are fairly small SVGs, just a rectangle with a cross in it. But I played with stroke line in the corner and the cap, and I did the same for Sketch. So created a rectangle with an X in it, played with stroke line, then expanded that path again to make sure that it could draw in different ways, so kind of mimic the way a visual designer might draw their artwork. Again, played with the border position, and then created a view that would just show all of the export options and inline them in one page. And already you can see all these numbers below it show the sizes in bytes. It's a typo. It should be a and you can already see that there are a lot of differences between these files. For instance, this one, for file 212. These are optimized via SVG, so you can actually choose if they use SVG O or the original. So white space has been stripped, IDs have been stripped, so the normal options. So this one is 212, but you can see that this one is 419. And what you can see that this one, for instance, has all these style tags in it, so it actually inlines the SVG. Oh, sorry, the CSS. And that is a problem, because all of a sudden we see this one doesn't really look the way it should, because this one has a declaration of one of these others in there, so it actually applies the CSS of somewhere here down here. to make sure it looks the way it should, because some approximation of that of the border thickness of the stroke width, and because it's all in the same document, because I've used the inlining strategy, it actually applies it on all these other, so that's why it really looks weird. But you can already see that there are big differences also in the way it looks between exporting and saving as. So that's already gave me an hint. Okay, so I should very specifically say that if you want to give me an SVG from Illustrator, use the export option with presentation attributes, because that one is the smallest, and never use the save as, because then it looks different and it's a lot bigger. There's another quiz for you. This one and this one are in file size 10% apart from each other. Can someone spot the difference? Yeah. So yeah, I drew one on 512 pixel grid, and then shifted it 1.10th of a pixel. And all of a sudden, you need a bigger precision to make sure that it actually aligns. Of course, you can still get that fixed by SVG, but if you have a slightly more complex shape that your precision will mangle, then your artwork doesn't work. It doesn't look the same again. You can get to an art file with a visual designer. So yeah, what can we do about it? Be careful with stroke lines. So what actually happens with the stroke line? Well, you can, for instance, if you have the stroke line options in Illustrator and in Sketch are a lot broader than you can do with SVG. So you have all these options of aligning a stroke to the outside of your artwork, on the inside of the artwork, or in the center. SVG does not have this option. If you would draw a stroke, it's on the middle of your artwork. No discussion about it. There are two ways to make sure that you actually maintain the appearance, and that's either creating an outline, so making sure that instead of a stroke, you get a path that has an outer and an inner, and then you fill it out, and you get artwork that actually has a fill instead of a stroke. But it is on the same position as that you've drawn it in Illustrator or in Sketch. Another one is masking, so you can draw it a bit bigger, get a thicker, or it's actually the same artwork. You increase the stroke width to 2 pixels instead of 1 pixel, for instance, and then add a mask to it, and then voila, you have the same appearance. Problem is that that's the thing that you saw earlier on that big sheet. All of a sudden, you saw artwork that had a 2 times as big stroke width because it was inheriting not stroke width from another artwork. This used to be the way Sketch works. They changed it in Sketch 43, I believe, and now it goes to the outlining procedure. But that's something that you really have to keep track of, or ask your visual designer to keep track of, because there is no way to fix this in a way that is maintainable if you want to play with these things. Another thing that's important to easy draw on a grid. A lot of people say, well, SVG is to be is resolution independent. Why should I keep track of my pixel grid? Well, really easy. You have a grid. You draw a pixel, your artwork on it. All these points are really easily represented by integers. And if you do it like this, then all of a sudden your artwork becomes bigger because you need a higher precision. But it's the same artwork. So always make sure that people find this option, because then you can really see what happens. You can also see that if you would use it on a website, what your browser will do with an artwork. If you have drawn something that should be used in 24 by 24 pixels, but you were drawing it on a pixel grid in 25 by 25, then yeah, it doesn't really fit because all of a sudden it has to dither around the pixel. So make sure that if you draw your artwork, draw it on a pixel grid, and the pixel grid should be the intended usage. Another one, something that I often see, simplify your paths. Of course, you're working with, if you're an illustrator drawing a lot and you need a lot of points to make sure you can snap on it, I don't know. But before you know it, you end up with a lot of points. And that's actually the thing that happened with the first image I showed you. There were a lot of points on that line because what happened was it was based on all these different circles to make sure that you get the image of a profile picture. And it was squished and it was moved around. But a lot of these points were not doing anything. But they take up space in your image. So again, yeah, remove those anchor points, and it helps a lot. Another one, inspect your exports. I always try to quick look where I open it in Sublime Text, and I try to figure out does this make sense or not. And this is something that, of course, you can't ask a visual designer, but it's something that we could help them with, I guess. Take a look at the export and see, did they use the proper exporting settings? Can I help them with their exporting settings? Because that's a big game and a big problem. So what's the game? But when we do all these things, we can get easier palette swaps, for instance. If we take the sheet again, you can see that if I would suggest to swap all the stroke colors with yellow, for instance, I get this, and now we can also see what then happens. All the things that are left have some problem. What kind of problems can we have? Well, for instance, these are inline styles, and because they have inline styles, they are they have a higher hierarchy, they have a higher score in the CSS, so that's why they're not changed by my my style rule. Some of these things are actually not strokes, but they're fills, and that's why these are bigger. And yeah, and some of them, the other ones are just style elements that keep their appearance but stack with another. Another thing is we have easier styling in general. What we can also do, for instance, is add animations to it, and we couldn't do that otherwise because we didn't have the artwork to actually do something with it. So where do we go from here? One of the questions I asked, or the statements I gave to the visual designers was, I consider developers' duty to test my SVG assets. Who here agrees with that? Do we consider it developers' duty to specify what an acceptable SVG is? Because I found that is actually the most important part, because we can test all we want, but if we don't know how to explain to them what we can do, or what we expect from them, then we have a big problem with making sure that we actually get what we want. And testing all the assets, then we need a testing suite for that. We need to make sure that we have some way of making sure that these things do the thing we want them to do. So I think it's easier to make sure that we have a way of helping them out. And create a small list based on that overview. I think the most important part is add presentation attributes. Even though it might increase your the file size because you're specifying the way the SVGs look inside the SVG on the artwork itself, or you have to add groups for to define that. You actually know that it is applied to that, and it's easily overridable. Another one is center your stroke lines. Don't play with alignment on either side because it breaks your artwork. And as soon as you would open it again in Illustrator, your artwork will behave differently than when you draw it. So it's a destructive thing to export it as SVG and then open it again if you would play around with those stroke lines. Another one, make sure that you have a viewable set up and a width and a height. The reason why these sizes were different in that sheet were because of these attributes missing. Make sure to be as pixel precise as possible. If you're not pixel precise, then you increase your the data needed for the same artwork. And make sure your paths are simplified. And another one, very important, because a lot of things break on this. Don't use any masks in it. For some reason, I don't even know why. I still don't know why. I end up with masks in artwork that really don't need masks, and all of a sudden you open it in Internet Explorer or something, and it breaks. And it doesn't break always. It breaks in some masks. And to be fair, I'm not sure why. These are some ways to make sure that we can help visual designers create artwork that we can work with without losing our sanity. But maybe the solution is to give visual designers a tool to test SVG with. If we don't know what they're, if we get them get the assets, then have to check if they work. Then explain that they've done it in a way that we didn't really expect. It takes a lot of time, so maybe we need an SVG linter. And I think that's the way I should move that overview forward. Making sure that I actually give visual designers a tool to also optimize them, because they want to optimize their things. They know how to find SVG OVGs, some of them. But maybe we should make sure that we also have a tool to actually audit these SVGs. And I'll switch to the list I made. Because yeah, there you can see what actually happens. Okay, my mouse doesn't seem to work again anymore. I'll go farther than this. So yeah, what you can see is that I identified some tags that I found out might be problematic. So we should check for definitions, style tags, style attributes, and then we can maybe even write like linters, which text can you use, which text can't you use, and then even bundle them into settings to make sure that we can see if people have used certain settings, and then help them out in that way, and eventually also get smaller SVGs in return. So I'm now asking you, is this something that might help you in your workflow? Is this something that,
I think so, but I think it's a very bad idea to try science.
Yeah, but that's why there are presentation attributes. I mean, I think that also this, if you use the styles tag to define your styling, again, when you open it in Illustrator, you're not certain that it will be there when you open it. So presentation attributes in that sense are a lot more safe if you re-author, or if you want to go further on your design as a visual designer.
I'm just curious about your workflow. Wouldn't it be better to maybe ask the designers to create illustrative files and then
Yes, and to be completely honest with you, often I redraw artwork I get from designers, but I don't think that's actually the way it should be, because my time is valuable, their time is valuable, and we're doing the same thing twice. I don't know that, and also officially I don't have Illustrator on my laptop.
Yeah, I don't know. Would designers actually give you the illustrative files, or will they only give you the SVGs?
Often they will give the SVGs, and I'll want to. I'll try to find them if I can't work with the SVGs. Sometimes they give the illustrative files, but often we say, well, I need the SVGs, not the illustrative files.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do too. I say, yeah, please SVGs, please.
Yeah.
But I think the linter that you suggest sounds like a good tool actually, because they can point. They can just make sure it passes this test.
Yeah.
And then send it.
Yeah. The only problem that I'm missing is to make sure that they get actionable data from the linter. Because if I would say you can't have definitions in your SVG, they would not know what to do. But to be fair, I also ask them, do you know what to do when I look for you to ask you to change something? More often than not, they don't know what to change. So there is some problem with that anyway. I only have to make sure that I find the right settings to test for, and then give helpful hints. So I find definitions. Maybe you turned on internal CSS on your export.
So what is the goal of this part? Is it some parts seem like you were talking about file size.
Yeah.
Other parts you're talking about usability or reusability.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The problem is that you start with you get a file, and it started with a big file, and I thought, well, why is this file so big? Because there are a lot of stuff in it that you don't need. Why is there a lot of stuff in there that you don't need? Because of settings. What happened with the settings? And all of a sudden, the Pandora's box opened in that sense, and found out that there are all these settings that we don't want. You get incompatibility from exporting functions. So, and a lot of these things start with the first line you draw. So if your setting of your on your stroke of your rectangle is different than an SVG can work with, then already you have a bigger file. You already have problems with if you would combine multiple versions of it on the same page.
But I would make the argument that you should optimize for SVGs that are clear and don't have any for example, the stroke is a pretty good one because classes of the SVG. But on the technical part about definitions or styles, I had a case where using styles reduced my SVG by 90%.
Yeah.
So on the technical side, it's pretty. There are some other issues that I would say are not the issue.
Yeah, but if that's completely true. But I think that as soon as you would use styles, it's something that you as a developer should do, and not a designer. Because
there's a workflow
there. Yeah.
That's also a very believer to do is saving both as a SVG and as a PV. And then that's the reason probably that it was asked for SVG, but then I have PV smaller file size. So then if you compare those two, PV and SVG, and SVG isn't smaller, then that should probably give you that there's something off. If not, then if you're using styles, then maybe it's okay depending on its usage.
Yeah, but that's why I also exported all the images as PNG, and you can see well the PNG of that rectangle or of that square with the cross in it, 260 bytes on disk. So if it's bigger than that, there's something wrong with it. In my humble opinion. Questions? I will set that in my slides, yeah. Yeah, okay, go on.
So I like the idea of a linter because to me it sounds very similar to what developers have an issue with accessibility. It's not very visible issue normally, and I think that tools like the accessibility linter.a get very actionable things back, and I think that's probably what you need here. If I can drag and drop my SVG somewhere, and you tell me warning you're using this, you're not sure wrong, and you're doing it, but that against its excellence, are you using Visual Illustrator? This is what I need. No. Fix this. I think I'm kind of excited about the idea that
well, I heard a very good response to that within 4 days or 11 months.
So maybe you just have to make an illustrator plugin, make sure they cannot choose an author.
Yeah, well, I also asked them what type of tool would you be willing to use to optimize or whatever, prepare your assets, and most of them wanted to have a web app, followed by a desktop app, and almost no one wanted a command line app. I don't know why, but it struck me as yeah, peculiar, but also promising that they actually prefer the web app, because that's something I can make. Well, I would think a desktop app and plugin is almost the same. But also the problem is that not everyone uses Illustrator, and they, for some reason, also use different settings within Illustrator. So then to make sure they have a fourth option for Illustrator might be muddying the waters even more.
That's the thing, because Illustrator nor Sketch is made for icons, for drawing icons. There are different tools for that that can export SVG pattern. And the thing is that these are the two main applications designers use. So my question is, well, I really like the idea of a linter, but isn't the problem better solved with better tools for designers?
Yes, I think most definitely solve with better tools. Or actually maybe worse tools. meaning tools that are not trying to do things that are not usable in SVGs. I think that if you have a tool that has SVG as a native file format, then it would be safer to actually work with. But also, yeah, it could also be that you're a bit hamstrung with SVGs, and that we need more, or designers need more options to work with SVGs. And of course, I can imagine that if you would draw artwork like this, that you want to have your stroke in the inside. I mean, it kind of makes sense that you want to have it aligned to the outer border of your outline if you want to of your artwork, and if you want to scale it or something, that you would want to do it from one point that stays the same inward, for instance. You would not be able to do that with the SVG spec unless you would use the art board for that. But then you have different stroke widths inside your artwork, adding complexity to your artwork. So maybe simple.
That's the hard thing. Yeah. You need to create something, get a nice image, and then it needs to be coded.
Yes, and that's I think the biggest part is they don't realize that it's code. It's almost like you're working with someone else who uses an old version of Dreamweaver in Design View, saves it and sends it to you. That's the basically are. What I didn't even talk about is to do with animations and transforms. Because then you get into the whole system of where you of origins, because see all the origins are in the standard top left. That's the standard origin of an SVG. But if you want to have translations on it, for instance, if you have a hamburger or something that you want to transform into an X, if you want to use simple CSS transforms, you're banging your head against the wall because you actually want your origin here in the middle. And yeah, try getting that from an Illustrator export. It's almost undoable. So I think we need some tools to help them with, or write a Python script to do that. I mean, write all the
I mean, if I were to do it, I would say it's simple. I would say point one is to check it visually.
Yeah.
So you would check in multiple browsers with different backgrounds to show that it's okay. Number two is show all the stuff that's outside of the viewport. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's pretty easy to detect whether or not there's stuff going on outside the viewport. Say something about it. Free text. If you convert your text to outlines, 95% of the cases, well, maybe in some cases you want to, but in most cases, you need the SVG and the web frames. What else? For definitions in Illustrator usually get exported as groups. So groups in Illustrator transport to definitions. So definitions is usually a representation in Illustrator. And group everything or explode.
Definitions are mostly used for styling and symbols, I believe. If you would create a symbol in Illustrator, then it will be a symbol in your SVG as well within the definition. So it will export definitions, but yeah, groups will be groups and layers will be groups in your SVG. But again, groups are easy to handle. I mean, SVGO will strip out the groups and make it flat. But if you would use a mask for it, then you would, or a symbol, then something different.
Geometry thing that you can start with.
Yeah.
I think how that started out with code is that you have to go to your terminal, and then after you were done, you could run it. Then you go back to your code. So that's my thing. And then we got file watchers and then from somewhere halfway, error extension type. And then after that, we get it integrated into our IDEs and then we get it as a line that something's wrong and it's wrong. And then we have that we start out with a linker and maybe some everything on the side. I don't know if from the save to the illustrator and sketch can happen and we can do it side by side. And then plug it would be ideal as in
Yeah, but the most visual designers will only export them SVG once. So file watchers might not be.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if you know, we do it on the export. But basically on the original, that's the whole
We have an artwork watcher.
Yeah.
And then it has to be a plugin.
Any other questions? Then, Jurgen, I would like to thank you. And also for you, there's chocolate, something. So that's it for the speakers for tonight. You can stay and bring things, and if you leave and you think you want to eat lasagna another day this week, bring some lasagna, sorry, otherwise we can't get rid of it. We're planning to do another front-end forward meetup after the summer, so that's going to be September. It's probably going to be about progressive web apps in real life, so not these are progressive web apps, but actual progressive web apps build, things that went wrong, those kind of things. We have one speaker for that. We're still looking for a speaker, so if you're interested in that, and know someone, also let us know. I would like to thank you for coming and attending, and I hope to see you next time. So, thank you.